Ethan Caldwell stood at the kitchen counter, methodically spreading peanut butter on whole wheat toast. His mind was elsewhere, rehearsing key points for his presentation at the upcoming marine biology conference. The gentle hum of the refrigerator provided a soothing background noise as he absent-mindedly reached for the jar of homemade strawberry jam. He paused, frowning slightly as he realized he had forgotten to take his laptop out of sleep mode. The slides for his talk on the impact of microplastics on local marine ecosystems were still half-finished. Ethan glanced at his watch. He had time, probably. The sound of footsteps on the stairs drew his attention. Olivia breezed into the kitchen, her heels clicking rhythmically on the tile floor. There was something different about her this morning. Her shoulder-length brown hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She wore a crisp white blouse and a pencil skirt that hugged her curves a little too tightly for a typical day at the real estate office. "Morning, honey," Ethan said, raising an eyebrow at her unusual attire. Olivia flashed him a smile that was a touch too bright. "Good morning. Beautiful day, isn't it?" Ethan nodded, confused by her exuberance. It was barely 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. Beautiful was not typically how Olivia described mornings before her first cup of coffee. "Oh, by the way," Olivia said, her tone casual but her eyes sharp, "my boyfriend Chase is waiting outside. I think it's time you two finally met." Ethan's hand froze midway to his mouth, the piece of toast suspended in air. He blinked, certain he had misheard. "You're what?" Olivia rolled her eyes as if Ethan was being particularly dense. "My boyfriend, Chase. He's right outside in his car. Come on, don't be rude." As if in a trance, Ethan moved to the window. Sure enough, there, in the driveway, stood a sleek Tesla Model S, its metallic surface gleaming in the morning sun. The sight of it made his stomach drop, reality crashing down around him. "Olivia," Ethan said, his voice low and controlled despite the turmoil inside. "What the hell is going on?" "Oh, don't be so dramatic," Olivia replied, waving a hand dismissively. "Chase and I have been seeing each other for a while now. I thought it was time to bring things out into the open." Ethan felt as if he had been punched in the gut. 15 years of marriage, and this was how it ended, with a casual announcement over breakfast. "You can't be serious," he said, struggling to keep his composure. This is insane, Olivia." Olivia's cheerful demeanor suddenly hardened. "Well, if you're going to be difficult about this, I'll just leave with Chase right now." "Your choice, Ethan." The threat hung in the air between them. Ethan could feel his world tilting on its axis, everything he thought he knew about his life and his marriage crumbling around him. But somewhere deep inside, a spark of anger ignited, burning away the shock and hurt. "If you walk out that door," Ethan said, his voice calm but firm, "our marriage is over." 15 years, Olivia. Is that what you want to throw away? For a moment, something flickered in Olivia's eyes. Uncertainty, perhaps regret, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She grabbed her purse from the kitchen counter, her movements sharp and decisive. "I guess it is," she said, her voice cold. Ethan watched, frozen in place, as Olivia walked to the front door. She paused for a moment, her hand on the doorknob, as if waiting for him to stop her. When he didn't move, didn't speak, she opened the door and stepped out into the morning sun. The sound of the door closing behind her was deafening in the sudden silence of the house. Ethan stood there, the half-eaten piece of toast still in his hand, as the reality of what had just happened slowly sank in. His wife had just left him for another man, and she had delivered the news with all the emotional weight of announcing she was stepping out to buy milk. Ethan's legs suddenly felt unsteady. He stumbled toward a chair and sank into it heavily, his mind reeling. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, a stark reminder that the world continued to turn even though his own had just ground to a halt. The aquarium was bustling with activity as Ethan entered through the staff entrance. He nodded mechanically to the security guard, his thoughts still trapped in an endless loop, replaying the morning's events. As he passed the tropical fish exhibit, the vibrant colors of the fish seemed muted, as though all the joy had been drained from the world. He barely registered the excited chatter of a group of school children pressed against the glass, pointing eagerly at a particularly vivid parrotfish. In his office, Ethan stared blankly at his computer screen. The half-finished presentation on microplastics seemed to mock him. How could he possibly focus on work when his entire personal life had just imploded? His phone buzzed insistently, and with a sense of dread, he glanced at the screen. A series of texts from Olivia illuminated the display. "I want half of everything. My lawyer will be in touch. Don't think you can screw me over, Ethan. I know all about your finances. You'd better not try to hide anything. I'll take you for everything you've got." A wave of nausea washed over him. The woman he had loved, the one with whom he had built a life, was now threatening him as though he were an enemy. He placed the phone face down on his desk, unable to bear looking at it any longer. A soft knock on his office door startled him from his dark thoughts. Dr. Maya Patel, his colleague and friend, peered inside. "Ethan, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Ethan attempted a smile, but it twisted into a grimace. "Maya, I don't even know where to begin." Maya stepped into the office, closing the door behind her. She sat across from Ethan, her dark eyes filled with concern. "What happened?" The words tumbled out of Ethan in a torrential rush. He told her about Olivia, about Chase, about the surreal breakfast conversation that had ultimately ended his marriage. As he spoke, he watched Maya's expression transform from genuine concern to palpable shock, and then settle into something else entirely: guilt. When he finished speaking, Maya remained silent for an extended moment. Then, releasing a deep sigh, she said, "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I should have said something." Ethan felt his heart skip a beat. "What do you mean?" Maya could not meet his eyes. "I had suspicions about Olivia. I saw her a few times with a man I didn't recognize. They seemed close, but I couldn't be certain, and I didn't want to cause trouble if I was wrong." The revelation struck Ethan like a physical blow. "You knew? And you didn't tell me?" "I'm sorry, Ethan. I should have said something. I couldn't bring myself to potentially ruin your marriage if I was mistaken." Ethan leaned back in his chair, feeling as though the wind had been knocked out of him. "Who else knew?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Maya hesitated before responding. I think a few others might have noticed something. There were whispers. You know how it is in a place like this, but nobody wanted to be the one to tell you." As if on cue, Ethan became acutely aware of the looks being directed his way through the glass walls of his office. Pitying glances, hushed conversations that ceased abruptly when he looked up. The news had spread, and now he had become the subject of office gossip. The humiliation burned hot in his chest. How long had this been going on? How long had he been the oblivious fool while everyone around him knew the truth? Before he could spiral further into his thoughts, his phone rang. It was the emergency line for the Sea Turtle Rescue Program. Ethan closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and answered the call. Work. He could focus on work. It was the only thing he had left. The house was eerily quiet when Ethan returned that evening. He stood in the entryway, keys still in hand, surveying the scene before him. The place faced. The room appeared as though it had been struck by a peculiarly discerning tornado. Drawers were yanked open, their contents strewn across the floor. The spaces once occupied by Olivia's cherished decorative items now stood starkly vacant. In the living room, the antique vase, his grandmother's wedding gift, was missing from its place of honor atop the mantel. With a mounting sense of dread, Ethan proceeded to the bedroom. The closet door hung ajar, Olivia's side stripped bare. Her jewelry box had vanished, along with the framed photographs of her family that had graced her nightstand. Ethan sank heavily onto the edge of the bed, burying his face in his hands. The truth of the situation was dawning upon him at last. This was no mere quarrel, no fleeting outburst from Olivia. She was gone, truly gone. His phone buzzed, jolting him from his stupor. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. "Mr. Caldwell?" inquired a professional voice when he answered. "This is Sandra from Coastal Credit Union's fraud department. We've detected unusual activity on your joint account with Olivia Caldwell. There have been several substantial withdrawals, along with international charges. We wish to confirm whether these transactions were authorized." Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. "No," he replied, his voice hoarse. "No, they are not authorized." What exactly has been happening with the account? As Sandra detailed the transactions, a cold fury began to build within him. Olivia had not merely abandoned him. She had stripped him clean. Their joint savings account had been emptied, their shared credit cards maxed out. After ending the call, Ethan sat for a moment in stunned silence. Then, with a sudden surge of energy, he moved to his home office. He needed to secure whatever assets remained, to grasp the full scope of the devastation Olivia had wrought. As he sifted through file cabinets and old statements, a folder caught his eye. It was labeled Old Work Projects, something to which he had never paid much attention. He approached it with the same familiarity as before, yet now suspicion colored everything. He opened it, and inside lay documents that made his blood run cold. Questionable real estate deals, properties sold well below market value to shell companies, inflated commissions. It was all there in black and white, a paper trail of fraud that Olivia had been running right under his nose. Ethan's hand shook as he reached for his phone. He scrolled through his contacts, pausing at a name he hadn't called in years, Zoe. Well, his sister, a corporate lawyer in New York. They had drifted apart over the years, busy with their own lives, but now he needed her. The phone rang 3 times before Zoe picked up. Ethan. Her voice was surprised but warm. It's been a while. Is everything okay, Zoe? Ethan said, his voice cracking. I need your help. Everything's falling apart. Over the next hour, Ethan poured out the whole story to his sister. Olivia's betrayal, the financial devastation, the evidence of fraud he'd uncovered. Zoe listened in shocked silence, only interrupting to ask clarifying questions. Jesus, Ethan, she said when he'd finished. I'm so sorry. This is a mess. But listen to me, okay? We're going to fix this. I'm going to help you through this. For the first time since that morning, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope. He wasn't alone in this. He had allies. He had a chance to fight back. As the night wore on, Ethan and Zoe formulated a plan. Legal options, financial damage control, steps to protect himself from Olivia's fraudulent activities. With each decision made, each strategy outlined, Ethan felt a little stronger, a little more in control. By the time he hung up, the first rays of dawn were peeking through the windows. Ethan stood, stretching his stiff muscles, and walked to the kitchen. He made a pot of coffee, strong and black, and stood by the window as he sipped it. The world outside looked the same as it always had. The neighbor's cat was prowling through the garden. Birds were starting their morning chorus. The morning chorus sang, but everything had changed. Ethan Caldwell, the trusting, naive man who had woken up yesterday morning, was gone. In his place stood someone new, someone determined, someone who wasn't going to let Olivia's betrayal destroy him, someone who was going to fight back. As he watched the sun rise, Ethan made a promise to himself. He would reclaim his life, he would find a way to move forward, and he would make damn sure that Olivia and her boyfriend, Chase, didn't get away with what they'd done. Nora sat in her dimly lit office, fingers flying over her keyboard as she delved deeper into the lives of Olivia Caldwell and Chase Blackwood. The private investigator had seen her fair share of messy divorces and corporate espionage, but there was something about this case that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She'd been hired by Ethan Caldwell's sister, Zoe, a sharp-tongued New York lawyer who had made it clear that discretion was paramount. My brother's been through enough, Zoe had said, her voice tight with barely contained fury. I want everything you can find on these two, but it needs to be airtight. We can't afford any mistakes. Nora's eyes narrowed as she scrolled through pages of financial records, property deeds, and court documents. Chase Blackwood's name kept popping up, always just on the edge of legality. Environmental violations swept under the rug, bribery allegations that had mysteriously disappeared before reaching court. Gotcha, you slippery bastard, Nora muttered, a predatory grin spreading across her face as she uncovered plans for a massive resort development along the coast. The project would decimate critical marine habitats, but the potential profits were astronomical. She picked up her phone, hitting the speed dial for Zoe. I've got something your brother's going to want to see. Across town, Ethan Caldwell sat at his desk in the aquarium, surrounded by stacks of scientific journals and environmental impact reports, dark. The dark circles beneath his eyes betrayed countless sleepless nights spent poring over data, channeling his pain and fury into a meticulously crafted report. He had always known the local marine ecosystem was fragile, but seeing the potential devastation laid out in cold, hard numbers made his stomach churn. Chase's resort wasn't merely a threat to his personal life. It was an ecological time bomb. With a deep breath, Ethan attached his report to an email. His cursor hovered over the send button for a moment before he clicked, dispatching the document to to a carefully curated list of environmental groups and journalists, compiled with the help of his colleagues. As he watched the sending animation, a part of him marveled at how quickly he had adapted to this cloak-and-dagger routine. The naive, trusting man he had been just weeks ago now seemed like a distant memory. His phone buzzed, a text from Maya flashing on the screen. "Got those water quality reports you asked for? Everything okay?" Ethan's fingers hesitated over the keys. Maya had been his rock throughout this ordeal, but he hated dragging her further into his mess. Still, he needed allies, and Maya's expertise in marine biology was invaluable. "Thanks," he typed back. "Busy with a project. Fill you in later." He barely had time to set the phone down before it buzzed again, this time with a call from Nora. "Mr. Caldwell." Her clipped tones came through the speaker. "I've got some information on your wife's professional activities. You're going to want to see this. Insider trading, mismanagement of client funds. It's not pretty." Ethan's jaw clenched. Every new revelation about Olivia felt like a fresh betrayal, reopening wounds he thought were starting to heal. "Send it over," he said, his voice rough. "And, Nora, thank you." As he hung up, Ethan's gaze fell on a framed photo on his desk. He and Olivia on their honeymoon, sun-kissed and laughing on a beach in Bali. With a sudden, violent motion, he slammed the frame face down. The community center hummed with palpable tension as residents steadily filed into the town hall meeting. Posters advertising Chase Blackwood's luxurious coastal resort lined the walls, their glossy images of infinity pools and manicured golf courses seeming to mock the anxious faces of the local attendees. Ethan slipped quietly into a seat near the back, his heart pounding. He had deliberately forsaken his usual button-down shirt and khakis for a nondescript hoodie and jeans, determined to blend in with the crowd. In his bag, he clutched a folder containing copies of his environmental impact report, each page a damning indictment of the proposed development. At the front of the room, Chase Blackwood cut an imposing figure in his tailored suit, his smile radiating confidence as he shook hands with local officials. Beside him, Olivia looked radiant in a crimson dress that likely cost more than Ethan's monthly salary. The sight of them together sent a fresh wave of pain through Ethan's chest, but he pushed it down firmly. He could not afford to let emotions cloud his judgment, not now. The meeting commenced with Chase's polished presentation, filled with soaring rhetoric about job creation and economic prosperity. Ethan watched the faces of his neighbors, noting the mixture of hope and skepticism in their eyes. He understood that for many, the promise of employment was a powerful lure. When the floor opened for questions, Ethan's hand shot up immediately. The moderator nodded in his direction, and he rose to his feet, his palms sweaty but his voice steady. "I've prepared a report on the environmental impact of this proposed resort," Ethan began, pulling out his folder. "According to my findings, the development would cause irreparable harm to local marine habitats, potentially leading to the extinction of several endangered species." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Chase's smile faltered for an instant before he smoothly recovered, interjecting, "I assure you, we've conducted thorough environmental assessments." But Ethan was prepared. He proceeded to rattle off statistics and citations, his evidence meticulously documented and impossible to ignore. His years of scientific training were evident in every precisely chosen word as he spoke. He saw understanding dawn on the faces around him. The damage this resort would do wasn't some abstract concept. It was a threat to their homes, their livelihoods, their very way of life. Olivia, recognizing Ethan's voice, had gone pale. Her eyes darted between her enraged husband and Chase, panic evident in her expression. Chase, for his part, was struggling to maintain his composure, his rebuttals growing increasingly flustered in the face of Ethan's meticulous research. As Ethan concluded his impromptu presentation, the room erupted in heated discussion. Outside, a commotion drew attention to the windows. A group of environmental activists, clearly tipped off about the meeting, had gathered with hastily made signs protesting the resort. The meeting dissolved into chaos, with concerned citizens peppering Chase and Olivia with questions they were ill-equipped to answer. Ethan slipped out amid the confusion, his heart racing with a mixture of adrenaline and vindication. He was nearly to his car when a hand grabbed his shoulder, spinning him around. Chase loomed over him, face flushed with anger. "You!" Chase snarled, his carefully cultivated charm evaporating. You're Olivia's ex. What the hell do you think you're playing at? Ethan stood his ground, acutely aware of the smartphone cameras that had turned in their direction. I'm not playing at anything, Mr. Blackwood. I'm a concerned citizen with relevant expertise. Or are you suggesting that my personal life should preclude me from participating in community discussions? Chase's grip tightened, his knuckles white. For a moment, Ethan thought the man might actually throw a punch. Then abruptly, Chase released him and stormed off, leaving Ethan shaken but triumphant. As he drove home, Ethan's phone exploded with notifications. Someone had captured the confrontation on video, and it was already making the rounds on social media. In the media, the comments were overwhelmingly in Ethan's favor, painting Chase as a bully attempting to silence a concerned local scientist. Ethan allowed himself a grim smile. The tide was turning. Maya Patel stared at her computer screen, her brow furrowed in concern. The local news website was plastered with images from the previous night's town hall meeting, including a particularly unflattering shot of Chase Blackwood appearing to threaten Ethan. She minimized a browser window just as Ethan walked into the lab, looking exhausted yet oddly energized. Quite a show last night, she said, keeping her tone neutral. Are you okay? Ethan nodded, dropping into his chair with a heavy sigh. Better than okay, actually. The story is picking up traction. I've already received calls from 2 national news networks wanting to interview me about the environmental impact of the resort. Maya chewed her lip, weighing her words carefully. Ethan, I'm worried about you. This vendetta against Chase and Olivia, it's consuming you. Are you certain this is solely about protecting the environment? Ethan's eyes flashed with a mixture of hurt and anger. Of course it's about the environment. You've seen the data, Maya. If that resort goes up, it will be an ecological disaster. I know, Maya said, holding up her hands in a placating gesture. And I agree with you. But you must admit, the personal angle complicates things. Before Ethan could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression hardening. I have to take this, he said, stepping out of the lab. Maya watched him go, her heart heavy. She had known Ethan for years and had seen him weather professional setbacks and personal losses with grace and resilience. But this was different. There was an edge to him now, a hardness that had not been there before. She turned back to her computer, pulling up the research they were supposed to be working on. The sea turtle rescue program needed their attention. Personal drama be damned. Meanwhile, across town, Olivia sat in her office, staring blankly at her computer screen. Her email inbox was flooded with messages from concerned clients, each one feeling like another nail in her professional coffin. She jumped as her office door flew open, revealing her assistant, who looked panicked. Miss Caldwell, the ethics board is here. They're demanding to speak with you immediately. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. What? Something about an anonymous tip, allegations of insider trading and misuse of client funds. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Olivia gripped the edge of her desk, her mind racing. How had they found out? Who could have? Ethan. It had to be Ethan. As the ethics board members filed into her office, their faces grim, Olivia felt the carefully constructed facade of her life begin to crumble. Across the city, Chase Blackwood paced his opulent office, phone pressed to his ear. What do you mean you can't get the permits? He snarled. I don't care what it costs. Make it happen. He slammed the phone down, running a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. The resort project was unraveling. Investors were getting spooked by the negative press and Olivia. Chase glanced at his phone. 3 missed calls from Olivia in the past hour. He ignored them, just as he had been doing for days. She was becoming a liability, and Chase Blackwood did not do liabilities. As the sun set over the city, Ethan found himself back at the aquarium long after most of his colleagues had gone home. He stood in front of the giant tank that housed their rescued sea turtles, watching the graceful creatures glide through the water. Mr. Caldwell? Ethan turned to see the aquarium's director, Dr. Harriet Chin, approaching with a concerned expression. Harriet. Ethan nodded, straightening up. Is everything all right? Dr. Chin sighed, her usually stern face softening slightly. Ethan, we need to talk. Your work lately has been exemplary, as always, but I'm concerned about the amount of time. You are expending significant resources on this campaign against the Blackwood Resort. Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but Dr. Chin held up a hand. I understand the environmental concerns. Believe me, I do. But you must be careful about mixing personal vendettas with professional responsibilities. The aquarium cannot be seen as taking sides in what is becoming a very public and contentious fight. The rebuke stung, but Ethan knew she had a point. He had been walking a dangerous line, using his position at the aquarium to lend credibility to his crusade against Chase and Olivia. I understand, he said finally. I will be more mindful of the separation going forward. Dr. Chin nodded, seemingly satisfied. As she turned to leave, she paused. For what it's worth, Ethan, I am sorry about what happened with Olivia. You deserve better. Left alone with the sea turtles, Ethan felt the weight of his actions pressing down on him. He pulled out his phone, dialing a familiar number. Zoe, it's me. I think I need some advice. As Ethan poured out his doubts and fears to his sister, the sea turtles continued their endless, graceful dance behind him. In their quiet strength, their ability to navigate vast oceans and always find their way home, Ethan found a strange sort of comfort. The path ahead was murky, fraught with moral and legal pitfalls, but like the turtles, Ethan was determined to stay the course, to find his way through the turbulent waters to calmer shores. Zoe Caldwell's office buzzed with the energy of a war room. Spread across her polished mahogany desk were stacks of financial reports, property deeds, and offshore bank statements. The New York skyline glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, but neither Zoe nor her brother Ethan spared a glance. You are certain about this? Ethan asked, his voice low and intense. He had flown in from the coast that morning, dark circles under his eyes betraying sleepless nights. Zoe nodded, her fingers flying over her keyboard as she pulled up the evidence. Another document from Chase Blackwood's Empires Built on Sand. Look here. She turned the screen toward Ethan. Shell companies within shell companies, all funneling money through a labyrinth of offshore accounts. It's textbook money laundering, and your wife is right in the thick of it. Ethan flinched at the mention of Olivia. Even now, months after her betrayal, the wound felt raw. Ex-wife, he corrected automatically. Zoe's expression softened for a moment. Right, sorry, she said, clearing her throat, all business again. The question is, what do we do with this information? Ethan's jaw clenched. We take them down, he said. All of them. For a moment, Zoe saw a flicker of something dangerous in her brother's eyes. It was a look she'd never seen before, not in the gentle marine biologist she had grown up with. She wondered, not for the first time, if she had done the right thing in helping him down this path of revenge. But it was too late for second thoughts now. They were in too deep. I've got contacts at the FBI and the SEC, Zoe said, reaching for her phone. We'll need to be careful about how we present this. Everything needs to be above board, or it could all backfire. As Zoe made her calls, Ethan stared out at the city below. Somewhere out there, Chase and Olivia were going about their lives, probably congratulating themselves on how cleverly they had played him. The thought made his blood boil. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Please, oh. Ethan's finger hovered over the delete button. Then, slowly, a plan began to form in his mind. Zoe, he said, interrupting her conversation. I think I know how we can get the final piece of evidence we need. Across town, in a much less impressive office, Olivia Caldwell stared at her phone. No response from Ethan. She fought down a wave of panic, glancing around the dingy room she had been reduced to working from. Her real estate license was suspended, pending investigation. Her assets were frozen. Chase wasn't returning her calls. Alone, desperate, and frightened, she called. With trembling hands, she dialed Ethan's number once more, and this time, he answered. Ethan, she breathed, relief washing over her. Thank God. We need to talk, please. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Ethan's voice, cool and controlled, replied, All right, Olivia. Let's talk. They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. As Olivia hung up, she felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could salvage something from this disaster. Little did she know, she was walking directly into a trap of Ethan's making. The cafe was nearly empty when Ethan arrived. He chose a booth in the back, positioning himself so he could see the door. His heart pounded, but his hands remained steady as he placed his phone on the table, the voice recorder app primed and ready. Olivia entered 5 minutes later. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. She seemed diminished somehow. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly styled hair, replaced by jeans and a simple blouse. Lines marked her face that he did not recall, and a haunted look shadowed her eyes. For a moment, Ethan felt a pang of sympathy. Then he remembered the morning she had walked out on him, the casual cruelty with which she had dismantled their life together. His resolve hardened. "Ethan," Olivia said, sliding into the booth across from him. "Thank you for meeting me. I didn't know where else to turn." Ethan kept his expression impassive. "What do you want, Olivia?" She launched into a story of betrayal and regret. How Chase had used her, how she had become entangled in his questionable real estate dealings. Tears glistened in her eyes as she spoke of missing Ethan, of wanting to make things right. Ethan listened, nodding at the appropriate moments and offering sympathetic murmurs, all while his phone recorded every word. "And the offshore accounts," Olivia continued, her voice low and urgent. "Chase said it was just tax optimization, but I knew it wasn't right. I should have said something. I should have stopped it, but I was frightened, Ethan. I did not know what to do." And now Ethan asked, his voice deliberately neutral. Olivia reached across the table, grasping his hand. Ethan forced himself not to pull away. "Now I want to make it right. Please, Ethan, help me. We could start over, be together again. I still love you." The words Ethan had once longed to hear now rang hollow in his ears. He looked at the woman across from him, the woman he had loved for 15 years, and felt nothing. No anger, no love, no hate. Just a profound emptiness. "I'll think about it," he said, standing up. "I need some time." As he walked out of the cafe, leaving a tearful Olivia behind, Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had what he needed now, the final piece of the puzzle. It was time to end this. The pre-dawn quiet was shattered by the sound of splintering wood. FBI agents burst through the front door of Chase Blackwood's mansion. Inside, chaos erupted. Agents swarmed through rooms, seizing computers, files, anything that could hold evidence of financial crimes. Chase, caught in silk pajamas and a monogrammed robe, watched in stunned disbelief as his carefully constructed world crumbled around him. "This is a mistake," he blustered, puffing out his chest. "Do you have any idea who I am?" "Who I know?" The lead agent, a no-nonsense woman with steely eyes, merely raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Blackwood, we know exactly who you are. That's why we're here." As Chase was led away in handcuffs, his eyes locked on a familiar face watching from across the street. Ethan Caldwell stood there, hands in his pockets, face impassive. For a moment, understanding flashed in Chase's eyes, quickly replaced by impotent rage. Ethan turned and walked away, Chase's muffled curses fading behind him. Across town, a similar scene was unfolding at Olivia's apartment. She went quietly, head bowed, the fight gone out of her. As a police car pulled away, Olivia caught a glimpse of Maya Patel watching from her car, a mix of pity and with an expression of disgust etched upon her face at the aquarium. Ethan arrived to find the place in an uproar. Staff were huddled in groups, whispering frantically. Dr. Chin intercepted him at the door to his office, her face grave. "Ethan, we need to talk," she said, ushering him inside. "The fallout from the Blackwood arrest has hit us hard. The resort project was tied to a significant portion of our funding. We're facing major budget cuts." Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. In his quest for justice, had he inadvertently put the aquarium and the marine life they protected at risk? "There's more," Dr. Chin continued, her voice softening. "Given your personal connection to the case, the board is questioning your position here. Some are calling for your resignation." The words struck Ethan like a physical blow. The aquarium was his life, his passion. The thought of losing it, on top of everything else he had lost. Before he could respond, a commotion arose outside. They looked out to see a group of Ethan's colleagues gathered around a computer, watching a news report on the screen. Chase Blackwood was being led into the courthouse, shouting over his shoulder. "It was all her idea," he yelled, eyes wild. "Olivia Caldwell. She masterminded the whole thing. I'm the victim here." Ethan watched, a mix of disgust and vindication roiling in his gut. He had known Chase would try to weasel out of responsibility, but seeing it happen was still shocking. His phone buzzed, a text from Zoe. "Check your email now." With trembling fingers, Ethan pulled up his inbox. There, in his spam folder, was an email from an anonymous address. Attached was an audio file, the recording of his conversation with Olivia. For a long moment, Ethan stared at the screen. With one click, he could ensure Olivia could not escape justice. With one click, he could destroy what remained of her life. His finger hovered over the mouse. A knock at the door startled him out of his reverie. Maya poked her head in, her face flushed with excitement. "Ethan, you." She led him out to the main atrium, where a crowd had gathered. Local news crews were setting up cameras, and a banner hung over the entrance. Save Arceus Emergency Fundraiser for Coastal Marine Conservation. Dr. Chin appeared at his elbow. "It seems word got out about our funding crisis. The community has rallied. They're calling you a hero, Ethan, the man who exposed corruption and saved our coastal habitats." Ethan stood there, overwhelmed, as cameras flashed and reporters called his name. He felt a surreal disconnect. This wasn't how he had imagined things ending when he had started down this path of revenge. He looked around at the faces of his colleagues, saw the hope and admiration in their eyes. Then he thought of Olivia, of Chase, of the lives he had helped destroy. In that moment, Ethan realized he stood at a crossroads. He could embrace this new role, use his influence to do good, or he could take that final vindictive step and ensure Olivia paid the full price for her betrayal. The choice, he knew, would define not just his future, but the man he would become. The international terminal at Logan Airport buzzed with activity. Travelers rushed to and fro, dragging suitcases and shouting into phones. Amid the chaos, Chase Blackwood moved with purpose. A baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Freedom was so close he could taste it. A private jet waited on the tarmac, ready to whisk him away to a non-extradition country. All he had to do was make it past security. Chase allowed himself a small smile as he approached the checkpoint. He had planned for this contingency, had assets squirreled away that even the feds didn't know about. He would rebuild, come back stronger than ever, and when he did, Ethan Caldwell and everyone else who had crossed him would pay. "Passport, please, sir," the TSA agent said, holding out her hand. Chase reached into his jacket, confidence radiating from every pore. Then he froze where the passport should have been there. "But there was nothing but empty air, sir," the agent prompted, frowning. Panic rising in his throat, Chase patted himself down frantically. No passport, no ticket. They were gone. A hand fell on his shoulder. "Charles Blackwood?" a stern voice asked. "FBI. You're under arrest for attempting to flee prosecution." As the handcuffs clicked into place, Chase's eyes darted wildly around the terminal. There, watching from near a gift shop, was Noran, the private investigator. He gave Chase a small, satisfied wave before disappearing into the crowd. Across town, in a small, bare interview room, Olivia sat with her head in her hands. Her lawyer, a court-appointed public defender who looked fresh out of law school, shuffled papers nervously. "Miss Caldwell, I've reviewed the evidence against you. It's substantial. The prosecution is offering a plea deal, but it would still mean significant jail time." Olivia barely heard him. Her mind was racing, trying to find a way out of this nightmare. There had to be an angle, some way to spin this. The door opened, and a familiar figure walked in. "Ethan." Olivia's heart leapt, but then she saw the cold determination in his eyes, and her hope withered. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice small. Ethan sat down across from her, placing a manila envelope on the table between them. "Giving you a choice, Olivia." He slid the envelope towards her. With shaking hands, Olivia opened it. Inside were divorce papers, already signed by Ethan, and beneath them, a USB drive. "That drive contains a recording of our conversation at the cafe," Ethan said, his voice flat. "You confessed to everything, Olivia. Your involvement in the money laundering, the insider trading, all of it." Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. "Ethan, please," I was desperate. "I didn't mean..." "Stop." Ethan's voice cut through her plea like a knife. "I'm not here for explanations or excuses. I'm here to give you an option. Sign the divorce papers, plead guilty, and I don't turn over the recording. Try to fight this," he challenged. "Attempt to manipulate your way out as you always do, and I will ensure the judge hears every word." Olivia stared at him, tears welling in her eyes. "You would do this to me, after everything we have endured together?" For a fleeting moment, Ethan's mask slipped, and she glimpsed the pain in his eyes, the inner conflict. Then it vanished, replaced by steely resolve. You brought this upon yourself, Olivia, upon us. I am merely ensuring that justice is served. He stood, buttoning his jacket with deliberate calm. You have until tomorrow to decide. Choose wisely. As Ethan walked out, leaving a shattered Olivia behind, a complex whirlwind of emotions churned within him. Relief, sorrow, a tinge of regret. But above all, he felt free. Outside the police station, Ethan found Zoe waiting for him. It's done, he said simply. Zoe nodded, studying her brother's face intently. Are you okay? Ethan considered the question carefully. I will be, he replied at last. What now? Now, Zoe grinned, a hint of mischief in her eyes. We build something good out of all this mess. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Ethan found himself thrust into the spotlight as the whistleblower who had exposed corporate corruption and helped preserve vital marine habitats. The aquarium's fundraising campaign, with Ethan as its reluctant public face, proved a rousing success. News soon arrived that both Chase and Olivia had accepted plea deals. They would serve time, though less than they deserved in Ethan's view. To his surprise, however, the news did not affect him as deeply as he had anticipated. He was ready to move forward. One crisp autumn morning, Ethan stood on the beach near the aquarium. The sun was just peeking over the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. In the distance, he could see the buoys marking the boundaries of the newly established marine protected area, a direct result of his campaign against Chase's resort. Breathing in the salty air, he felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. The past year had been a maelstrom of pain, betrayal, and vengeance, but standing there, he sensed a new beginning. As the dawn of a new day broke across the horizon, Ethan experienced a sensation he had not felt in a long time. Hope. Beautiful, isn't it? A voice remarked from behind him. Ethan turned to find Maya approaching, holding 2 cups of coffee. She offered one to him, and together they stood in a comfortable silence, watching the sunrise. After a while, Maya spoke again. The new conservation initiative is really taking off. We've had inquiries from marine biology programs all over the country. They want to partner with us and send students for field work. Ethan nodded, a small smile touching his lips. It's more than I ever imagined when we started this. Maya turned to him, her expression serious. You did good, Ethan. Despite everything, you did good. Ethan met her gaze and saw the warmth and admiration in her eyes. For the first time in months, he felt a flutter in his chest that had nothing to do with anger or revenge. We did good, he corrected gently. I couldn't have done any of this without you, without all of you. As they stood there, with the sun climbing higher in the sky, Ethan felt the last vestiges of his old life, his pain and bitterness, slip away. He turned to Maya, a new resolve in his eyes. There's something I need to do, he said. An hour later, Ethan found himself in a nondescript government building, facing a stern-faced FBI agent. Mr. Caldwell, the agent began, we received some interesting information, anonymous tips that proved crucial to our case against Blackwood and your ex-wife. We have reason to believe these came from you. Ethan nodded, his heart racing but his voice steady. Yes, that's correct. The agent leaned forward. We'd like to offer you the opportunity to come forward officially. Your testimony could be invaluable in ensuring justice is served. Ethan hesitated. Going public would mean exposing himself to scrutiny, possibly jeopardizing the new life he was building. But as he thought of the damage Chase and Olivia had done, not just to him, but to the community and the environment, he knew what he had to do. I will do it, he declared resolutely. Whatever you require. The ensuing weeks unfolded as a whirlwind of depositions, interviews, and court appearances. Ethan's testimony captured headlines, crafting a damning portrait of corporate avarice and environmental devastation. Throughout this tumultuous period, he discovered fortitude in unexpected quarters. His colleagues at the aquarium rallied around him, with Maya providing a constant, supportive presence. Even Dr. Chun, who had once cautioned him against conflating personal vendettas with professional duties, now regarded him with newfound respect. As the legal proceedings drew to a close, Ethan immersed himself in his nascent marine conservation initiative. This project, born from the ruins of Chase's failed resort, was dedicated to protecting and restoring critical coastal habitats. One evening, while working late at the aquarium, Ethan received an unexpected visitor. It was the lead FBI agent from the case. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, extending her hand. "I wanted to personally thank you for your cooperation. Your testimony was instrumental in securing convictions." Ethan shook her hand, a complex tide of emotions washing over him. "I am just glad justice was served," he replied quietly. The agent nodded. "It was. And I thought you should know. The judge took your environmental impact report into consideration during sentencing. Blackwood and your ex-wife received additional time for the ecological damage they nearly caused." As the agent departed, Ethan leaned back in his chair, allowing the news to settle within him. It was over. Truly and completely over. The next morning found Ethan on the beach once more, this time encircled by a group of eager marine biology students. They were the inaugural participants in his new conservation program, and their enthusiasm was infectious. As Ethan led them along the shoreline, identifying various species and elucidating the delicate balance of the coastal ecosystem, he experienced a sense of purpose more profound than any he had ever known. The sun was fully ascended now, its warmth dispelling the last vestiges of the morning's chill. Ethan paused, gazing out. Over the water, in the distance, he could see a pod of dolphins, their fins breaking the surface as they played in the waves. A smile spread across his face, genuine and unforced. For the first time in a long while, Ethan Caldwell felt truly at peace. The vendetta that had driven him for so long had transformed into something greater, something that would leave a lasting, positive impact on the world. As he turned back to his students, ready to share more of his knowledge and passion, Ethan knew that this moment, this purpose, was what he had been searching for all along. Not revenge, but redemption. Not destruction, but creation. The journey had been painful, the cost high, but standing there on the cusp of a new chapter, Ethan wouldn't have changed a thing. He had found his way. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to this channel, click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.